Hey, what's up? Husman here, and I'm back. I'm back from a holiday. Had a great 2 weeks in Jordania, or Jordan, and Israel, where I did a little round trip with my girlfriend and my girlfriend's parents, which was a great experience. Was a little tiresome experience. We had a lot of early get-ups in the morning, but we saw some amazing stuff, some amazing architecture from like 200 before Christ and stuff. So it was a great little trip before now heading back into the studio again. So I'm really happy to be back in my little studio again. And I thought, what could be a great video to start with? And I thought, well, I've just released a new track, which is called Blackhawk on In Harmony Music. And I'm really grateful for all your support so far on that one. I saw a lot of people already playing it. I saw a lot of messages of people like enjoying listening to the track. So today I'm gonna talk you through how I made the track, the process which I started with, how it evolved, and I'm gonna show you how that little idea, that melodic idea I made for a YouTube video a while ago turned into Blackhawk. So we're here in the project, and it's quite a big project. It was a little bit messier than I have it now because I've always cleaned it up a little bit for you guys. And let's start first. So let's start first with how this track actually came about. And you might remember, those of my loyal YouTube followers, that I've made a video in the past about lead layering, and I actually made this melody for that tutorial. So the thing where I started off with is this melody, which sounds like this. So that was actually the basic idea of this track. And then I went into layering this, and I've already showed this, I believe, in the tutorial as well. They didn't change that much because I already had the layers ready. So I have this layer, you have the main layer, this one. And then the other layer. And this one is just to give it some width. Now we have with the lead character and the lead main, we have the sounds in the middle, which really have to bring the character. And the lead saw is then there to make it a bit more wider. Then I have one more lead sound, which I thought added something towards the whole flavor of things. Again, something a little bit different than the other ones, so you get a really cool blend of all of them. And that was actually, when I was at this point, I was like, yeah, I like how this is going, so I always like to afterwards add some chords with that as well. I had some really simple ones here for this track, which is basically this. And the key with this was actually to make some changes to it and not make it follow the main melody totally. So as you can see here, there is one note, the A sharp, which is higher than the main melody is playing, and it gives a really cool switch around effect. So when we first have this melody playing, let's open it here. And with this chord again, it gives it a different vibe the second part around. It's more like da 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 da, and it creates just a cool dynamic, I'd say so. So I have one chord layer, second chord layer, which is a bit more snappy. And then afterwards I felt it didn't blend as well as I'd hoped. So I added a pluck line, which is playing a bit of an 8th note pattern. And then lastly add a bass line underneath it, which is basically something really simple. It's my arrival bass from one of my Patreon packs. And then the whole layer, I got some claps here, nothing too shabby. And then you get something like... So that was the main part of this track, and then it was all about, first I went into, needed to create a breakdown for it. Now I always, when I make a breakdown, I always like to take part from the main melody line and dissect it and really build it up from the ground with different instruments. So the first thing I actually found was on Splice. I found this really cool vocal which played this. The main thing with this vocal was that I need to cut it a bit because I really want to have it a different flow which would flow better with my melody. But I came across this section here and I had an issue to work around, which was this. As you can hear, it got a pretty dissonant tone here, this section. So the initial melody that I had in mind that followed the same pattern as the main melody with the chords and stuff, it didn't fit there. So when I went into creating strings for this section, I needed to make this note a little bit, this chord a little bit different so it would fit better. So I went with this pattern. So as you can hear, this is a pretty interesting kind of note pattern that I had to use, and in the end I really like how it turned out. So we combine this with the vocal. I think that gives it a really cool little atmosphere and a little different dark undertone. Now on this breakdown I added some different choirs. I started with a really low one. It's I think it was the same one I used in Arrival. And then I have a little texture here from Arcade, one of my favorite plugins. And then in the second part of the breakdown I really like to build some tension, so I made a little pattern with some staccato strings. And then after that I had a little felt piano from Christian Hansen, which is a free plugin actually on their Spitfire Labs pack. For this breakdown I also want some drums, but I'm not a big fan of those big orchestral drums because my music I always see is a bit more futuristic. And I really like it when the drums portray that as well. And now for big room drums they already sound like really synth-ish. And yeah, I always have to feel those big orchestral drums like taikos and all those kind of big impacts. They feel for me a bit too medieval, so to say, like a bit more from a historic point of view. So I always try to look for some distorted kind of drums for in the breakdown. So I found this little pattern. And then ended with like a big impact. So if you combine the whole part here. Hello? And we end with a little bit of Kara. I found this vocal from her on one of her packs. And it's basically this vocal. And I didn't need all the voices, I just really like this section here. Because I thought I could like blend that into the lead, so when it goes towards it, it keeps on going. Now one thing I didn't mention in the beginning of this breakdown, I have a little interlude, which is like an announcement of the main melody actually. And I use the music box, which I think sets a pretty cool sinister tone. Combine that with a little super saw in the filter and some sample effects. I really like using Foley in my breakdowns. I think it's really great way to put your song in a more story-based setting. I mean, if I would remove all these Foley effects like this one, And I have here like a ritual fire thingy. And I always like to think of a placement where my breakdown is playing. So here I was like maybe in a dark cave where you hear some voices, and then yeah, it doesn't need to be like really specific, but I always like to think that it gives a little bit of extra dimension when people listen to it on a dance floor and they hear those little artifacts in my breakdowns. I think that's quite a cool thing on top. Now add some of those weird dissonant tones as well to blend everything together, and that's basically the breakdown and the lead structure. Now after these two parts I always go into a drop, because we need a drop. And for this one I always like to, normally I like to take notes from, or take inspiration from the main melody, so it's all feels like one cohesive track. And the main melody goes like that, you know how it goes. And I thought like perhaps we make an upwards going pattern like that, or something in that range. So I came up with this little main melody. Now the sound and zone is a screech, and a screech is always like really screechy. But there was a lot of things that I applied to it, and the first thing that you're gonna notice, I did a lot of pitch bending. So what it basically means is that the sound is starting on an octave below the actual note, so it's going towards the sound and then it blends back into an octave downwards again. So this gives us that really cool. If I would remove these. Now you might notice there is already a little bit of glide going, and that's because I did a little pitch effect here. So this also already tells the note like, alright, we're starting a little bit lower on pitch and we're going to move towards it, and you can play around with the decay setting and then make it your own. Now the second thing that I did, I had this melody like dun 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 dun, and I thought the last dun was a bit boring. So I thought we need to make this one, for starters, a bit longer and then add some effects to it. So I increased a lot of the detuning here. You can see it here. So I made this sound go instead of. So we're basically going to play around with the pitch. The same with LFO. If you remove the detune, if you play it on here, you can hear the difference what detuning does. That's an automation I did, and I did also an automation with the LFO where the pitch bend is going. And lastly, I always like to use an auto pan which increases, so it gets that stuttery effect from left to right, and then you get something like. And a cutoff, so that was what I forgot to mention. Now, there's always some parts which I like to spend a little more extra time on. It's mostly the 4th bar, the 8th bar of every section. So here we did a little change in bass and in melody. So I added some chords. So instead of going, we added some chords here. And then we added here a little short section of the lead layer. And one extra synth. And because I still felt I needed more, add some drop, add some brass here. So, my computer doesn't like me too much today. And anyway, case is vocals added. And then there comes the last thing that I added in the drop, or actually one of the things that I started with, is just a kick. And it's one kick of my Patreon packs, which is pretty nice. This track is made in E flat, and E flat is a great key to make bass lines and kicks in, because it's like a really powerful key. But whenever I always like to do in the 4th or 8th bar, like go downwards in bass notes, it became really low. So I thought like it didn't work really well when making that long kick, that tail, that sub kick go down 4 semitones and even 5 semitones or 2 semitones. So I made a decision to make the kick here really short. And then layer it with a bass. So now it doesn't have a lot of power, but it still has power enough to be full sounding. So instead of going like this, it goes like. And because we have all those other elements here, it doesn't matter that much that you don't hear a big room kick here. And with the big room kick packs, I actually, I really want to have a big room kick that's scaled around the whole octave, because it's usually big room kicks, they change in baseline, and I think with this pack it's much more easier to just put it in there and then have a solid kick, to start your track off with. And I think that, that was for me really important. Now, second part of this section, I basically just put the melody an octave up and added some extra notes. And then instead of repeating those notes here, I layered it with, first and foremost, some chords to give it a bit more width. And then added the vocal in between, so you get a bit of back and forth going with the two. And that's basically the meat of the whole main bass and main drop, actually. So there was one more thing to do, and you have a few more things in the grand scheme of things. But it was making a intro drop, and what I always do with an intro drop, I always dissect again things from the main drop, so remove the main lead and just work a lot with some bass lines. So I have this bass here, I have this sample here, I have this sample here, a lot of samples in this intro drop. And then again, the fourth bar, just play around with some different chords and some fills. So when we listen to it, again, playing around with chords, but don't overdo it that much. So I have like here a super soft, and then only like 3 or 4 bars later is where it fills up the final rounding of the melody. And the second part, I started teasing the vocal. So I have here the vocal, and you might notice it sounds a bit different than it was, and it's because I used the vocal synth, and it's a great way to make something unique of vocals, and if you want to not only use synths or not only vocals, there's a great hybrid between the two. So without it, with it, very different. And then you might notice one thing here is a really pretty cool Easter egg, is that I wanted to have some brass that goes with the vocal, but I couldn't find the right pattern, I couldn't find the right sound at the time. And I just went into looking in my library and looking for a choir. And I found this Mad King choir for my track Mad King. And I noticed it had the same kind of rhythm. So I put it like the original is sounds like this. And it of course didn't fit the key of the track. So I put it down, and to my amazement, it fitted with the vocal. I was like, that works. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that could teach you a little bit about Blackhawk and how I made the track and how the process went, and hopefully it maybe inspire you a little to create your own new music. And before I go, there's one more thing I'd like to mention. I've made my first preset pack for my web shop. I've done a lot of sample packs already, but I want to add, next to the samples, I want to add some presets because I really enjoy making presets. So the first pack is the Growling Bass pack, and this is what you can expect from this package. Now I'm gonna pick one of the first 50 commenters below this video who gets a free pack of Growling Bass Volume 1 for Serum. So leave a comment, it doesn't matter what you're gonna comment, send me a note, send me something, I don't know. And I'm gonna pick one and contact you directly, and then you can expect a free package of this Serum pack with growling bass lines that I've been using a lot already. And I really hope that you're gonna like it. So that's all for this week. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what I do, hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe. And I see you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.